I'm Dr. Angela McBurdy of DoctorFlute.com, and today's flute tip is on 5 ways to improve your technique today. Technique number 1 is to interact with your scales. Don't just play scales, but play the exercises that move them and go around them. And what I'm talking about is your Taffanel and Gobert, number 1, 2, 4 for just regular scales, 5 if you're working on chromatics. So that's number 1. Number 2 does that in minor. Number 4 and so on and so forth, and then it goes into the minor. All these exercises are just phenomenal to teach your fingers how to move. Now, you don't want to start really fast when you're working on these. In fact, my fingers are kind of cold right now, and I feel like they're not perfectly even. So I need to warm up my muscles, and I would go a little bit slower, because going slower really reveals where the problems are. The faster you go when you're playing the scales, and even though I could do that, I could do it fast, but I can't really hear exactly how uneven I am unless I'm going slower. And going slower is going to make my fingers feel like the muscles are training. They're getting trained, and it's going to warm them up and make sure that they're moving. Now, there are all sorts of scale exercises, such as Reichert. And that goes into the minor too, and it goes through all your scales. Those are great. You can use any technique books that have scale passages and 5-note studies in the whole length, and as long as you do them every single day and you do them with intention. When you're working on your scales, make sure that you are paying close attention to what is happening in those scales. Number 2, work on your arpeggios, and arpeggios in all forms and in all keys. So if you've never worked on arpeggios, you can just start with C. So what I'm talking about is when you're a chord, C, E, and G, if I start with C, and I'm going to play it up 2 octaves. And then instead of landing on C, I'm going to land on the half step above. So C sharp. So and then go up the C sharp one. And I landed on D. And do them until you can just play them like the back of your hand. And so on. Now you can use, you can vary that however you wish. I sometimes like to go up 1 octave and then raise it a half a step and come down that arpeggio. Then go up a half step and go up that one. So you're continuously changing the arpeggio. And so on and so forth. Now, once you get that down really well, then go to your books. And there's so many good arpeggio exercises if you're using William Bennett's book. And Taffanel and Gobert's 10 and 11 are my personal favorites. But Reichert's got some great ones in there. And I would just work on one of those exercises until you can play that solid, and then you've earned the right to move on to some other books' arpeggio exercises. But I really like combining in Taffanel and Gobert number 10 and 11. So the arpeggios go through every key, And the chord in every key plus the chord's variations, such as major, minor, augmented, and diminished in every key. So if you take one measure of number 10 and you play it twice, and then match the same measure in number 11. And what number 11 does is it breaks the arpeggio. So in number 10, you're doing 1, 3, 5 in arpeggio. In number 11, you are going 1, 5, 3, 1 and changing it up. So I'll show you with just F major. And then move on to the next measure. Now, with 10 and 11, that can take you a year and a half to get through all of them. But you just concentrate on one key per day, or one 1, 3, 5 combination, C, E, and G, C, E flat, and G, C, E flat, G flat, and then work on the next one another day. But those are just fantastic for improving your technique. Very important, because how much easier would your Mozart concertos be if you knew your scales really well and your arpeggios? A lot of classic literature is based on your scales and arpeggios. Now, you can even find scales and arpeggios in major, minor, augmented, and diminished in 20th and 21st century literature. Sometimes it looks a little bit different, but if you analyze, you can say, oh, that's just this particular scale. It's a chromatic scale. It's a C-sharp scale. So it will help you all the way through. Number 3 is the glitch. Work on your glitches. And what a glitch is a combination of fingerings where when you're playing them, all fingers do not work equally. You've got it. You've got all the notes, but they're not all crystal clear. It doesn't sound effortless. It sounds like something is just clunking in the middle of that. And that's because some finger combination didn't go at the same time, or one finger came down too fast, or one finger lifted up, because our fingers are not created equal. So if you've worked on your scales, you're working on your arpeggios, now you work on your glitches and you train those muscles. It's just a training, and you train them as if you were a basketball player or a baseball player, the same repetitive motion that you have to do, and you're analyzing. The key to fixing a glitch is to analyze where is the problem. So if I were to play, I think in Machinsky, his 3 preludes in the 3rd movement, the very opening is just rife with glitch problems. So okay, that one, if you're not really careful, it is your D going to an F sharp. So if I put down my D, then when I go to F sharp, these 2 go down, so 2, they're not always even by themselves. But then my first finger has to go down, my middle finger has to go up. The only one that doesn't have to do anything is this 3rd finger. So to work on a glitch, I'm going to analyze who is the problem. I think my middle finger is slow at coming up, so I'm going to concentrate on that finger. Now I'm saying, well, maybe it's the middle finger coming up with these going down, this finger here especially going down. So let me just concentrate on those. That one was a really good one there. But the slower I go, the more it reveals what the problem is. And when I finally identified that it's the 3rd finger going up and my 4th finger here, my D finger going down at the same time as that one going up, when I concentrate on just concentrating on them will fix it, because I'm just saying in my brain, I've got to make them move at the same time. Now I'm going really, really slowly, And then I want to go a tiny bit faster, and then a little bit faster than that, until I can play it well. See, it's a hard one if you're not really preparing. So that's a really difficult combination. And I have my students work on that a lot. I remember having to work on that tons when I finally realized, oh, that's why I don't sound like a professional right there, because I'm glitching. My fingers know what to do, but they're not doing it at the same time. So glitches can really make a huge difference. And what's beautiful about glitches is when you work on that muscle control here in this one spot, it carries to other pieces. You've taught those muscles to work better. And so it's not quite as hard when you run into that combination or even another combination with those same fingers in some other piece. So glitches aren't beautiful to work on. They're painful, they're tedious, and they take a long time, but they're well worth you working on them. Number 4 is listening. Our greatest tool in improving our technique is listening to our fingers, listening to what is happening. When you're playing your scales, your arpeggios, and your glitches, you need to be completely in tune to how fast or how slow your fingers are moving. So many of my, especially high school students, will come and they think that they can play something, and then I have them slow it down, and it's incredibly uneven. And that's because they aren't listening to how uneven their fingers are. Their muscles don't work the same. And what's amazing, that even when you have a metronome on, sometimes you can be uneven between the beats, but be right on the beat when the first note of the measure comes or something. You've got to listen to how your fingers move and who is moving too fast, who is moving too slow. Some combinations of fingers just move faster than the others, and you have to train those fingers to move at the right time. And the only way is to have it revealed to you by listening carefully. It will reveal a world of trouble, but it's worth listening to, because when you fix it, it's fixed. Number 5 is use a metronome. A metronome is a wonderful invention that we need to use for our benefit, and that benefit is to improve your technique. We think that we can start something slow and then it's going well, so now I want to go a little bit faster. So I go a little bit faster and then maybe a little bit faster. The problem is our internal clock, my percussionist probably has a much better internal clock than I do, and he can maybe do this, but I cannot go from this tempo a little bit to a little bit to a little bit. I need that metronome on to help bring my fingers, my muscles, and my tempo up very slowly, because then I'm working, I'm keeping even, I'm listening, and I know my fingers are still working as I get faster. Most of the time, with my students, when I say to move a little bit faster, they go from this tempo to this tempo. There isn't all these little increments. And there's just a beautiful thing going from 60 to 65, sometimes to 67. Then 70, then 73, then 75. It just depends on what you're working on. Some pieces that I've played to needed me to get to 212. And while I worked it, maybe I even started at 60 to learn whatever the runs were in this particular piece. And then I could move it up to 70. Sometimes when you're in the really slow ones, you can move a little bit bigger jumps. But I remember going from, I could get it to 180, but 180 to 212, 180, 183, 185. It was 3 segments, 3 little clicks faster. And that's what helped me get to the tempo that I needed to get at. So use your metronome. That's the best way to help you improve that technique. It will reveal where you're uneven, where your fingers are uneven within the beat. So sometimes we're right on the beat with our first note, say with our first of our 16ths, 4/16ths, but the 3 in the middle are not totally even. So using that metronome, using the subdivision of the beat with the metronome is fantastic. Don't be afraid to use it. I know there are some people out there that say you shouldn't use a metronome, you should have the clock internalized, and I get that. There's reasons to say that too. But I know with my background, I needed that metronome, and I still do. Those are 5 ways that you can improve your technique today. Start working on them today. You'll notice an improvement tomorrow. Find those glitch spots. Listen to what you're doing. It's going to help you in huge ways and really get these fingers to start moving. That's today's flute tip.